Flight number 2487 to Rome, we are clear for takeoff. My heart skipped a beat, and I glanced nervously around, suddenly feeling out of place. The anxiety in my chest had been growing for the last few minutes. There was no way this could be happening, right? How had I ended up on the wrong flight? I could feel my palms sweating as I gripped the sides of my seat. I stood up, attempting to make my way to the front to explain the mistake. But before I could take a step, the flight attendant placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, stopping me. "You must remain seated until we hit cruising altitude," she said firmly but kindly. "But I'm on the wrong flight," I protested. "I was supposed to go to Paris. I need to get off." Her face showed a flicker of surprise, but she quickly composed herself. "I'm sorry, sir, but there's nothing I can do now. The plane has already taken off." I slumped back into my seat, heart racing, trying to steady my breathing. There was no turning back now. My thoughts spiraled, trying to make sense of how I'd gotten here. I had no idea how my ticket got mixed up, how I ended up on this flight to Rome, but here I was. I glanced down at my boarding pass again, staring at the name printed there. Ethan Clark. Wait, that wasn't me. My name is Ethan. There was another Clark boarding at the same time for this exact flight, and now that person was headed to Rome too. I cursed under my breath, not sure whether to laugh or cry. This was a mess. Suddenly, my mind snapped back to the present as I realized the person sitting next to me was looking at me curiously. I looked up, meeting his gaze. His dark brown eyes were intense, and I felt a strange spark of recognition, though I was sure I'd never seen him before. He was stunning, the kind of handsome that could turn heads in a room. His sharp jawline, perfect stubble, and tailored suit screamed wealth and sophistication. The subtle scent of his cologne was intoxicating. How was I supposed to focus on anything when this guy was sitting next to me? "Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice low and rich, like velvet. His smile was effortless, charming. I blinked, trying to snap out of the trance. "Yeah, just nervous," I stammered. "I'm on the wrong flight." His gaze flickered with interest, but instead of asking more questions, he simply smiled. "Don't worry," he said, his hand brushing against mine as it rested on the armrest between us. "It'll all work out." I wasn't sure if he was trying to comfort me or distract me from my growing panic, but I appreciated the gesture. His hand lingered for a moment, longer than necessary, before he pulled it back. My heart skipped a beat. There was something magnetic about him, something about his presence that made me feel calm and yet unsettled at the same time. "How about we start over?" he said with a grin, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "I'm Luca Rossi." "And you are?" "Ethan Clark," I replied, swallowing the nervous lump in my throat. "A pleasure, Ethan," Luca said smoothly. "I have to admit, you don't look like you're supposed to be on this flight. What happened?" I hesitated, unsure how much to explain. I'm not sure. There's been a mix-up with my ticket, but I guess it's too late now." I forced a smile, trying to mask my anxiety. Luca's eyes softened with understanding. He leaned in slightly, his voice quieter now, as if speaking only for me. "You seem a little shaken up. How about we just relax for a while, and then we'll figure it out when we land? No reason to stress over things we can't control, right?" I blinked, caught off guard by his calm demeanor. I nodded, though my mind was still racing. Luca seemed to exude an effortless confidence that I couldn't help but admire. The next 2 hours passed in a blur. We talked a little about life, our interests, and even exchanged a few stories. I could tell that Luca was wealthy and well-traveled, a businessman of some sort, but he didn't come off as arrogant. Instead, he was charming and kind, always asking questions about my life as if genuinely interested. I found myself easing into conversation with him, my earlier anxiety fading into the background. After we landed, Luca and I parted ways. We exchanged a brief hug, and I watched as he walked off, disappearing into the crowd. I couldn't help but feel a little deflated, like something had ended too soon, and yet I wasn't sure why I felt that way. "Fate will bring us together again," Luca said with a wink as he left, his voice lingering in my mind. Yeah, maybe. I wasn't so sure, but part of me hoped he was right. I stood at the airport terminal, still reeling from everything that had happened. It didn't make sense. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be in Rome, stranded with no way to get back home. I was supposed to be enjoying Christmas with my family, not wandering through foreign streets without a plan. I went to the ticket counter, trying to figure out if there was any way I could catch a flight back. The woman behind the counter clicked through her computer, her face unreadable. Sorry, but all flights to the United States are booked. There are no available seats. You can try a red-eye flight, but it's $3,000. I winced. I'll pass, I muttered. I wasn't exactly swimming in cash. What about other options? She sighed, clearly tired of dealing with frustrated customers. There's one flight leaving in 10 minutes, but it's $3,000. I bit my lip, feeling defeated. Anything else? She shook her head. Try checking with the hotel. Some might have space. But with the holiday season, everything's booked solid. I nodded, though my heart sank. I didn't even know where to start looking. I sent a message to my parents, explaining the situation. They were kind enough to offer to cover a hotel room. But after a few hours of searching, I discovered that nearly every place was fully booked, except for one, a hotel called Weston. I reserved a room using my parents' card, feeling guilty but grateful. I grabbed a taxi and made my way over to the hotel, trying to make the most of this unexpected detour. I couldn't believe how quickly my plans had spiraled out of control. When I arrived at the hotel, I tried to check in, but the receptionist's face fell as I looked at the system. "I'm afraid the room is double booked," she said, her voice apologetic but firm. "There's nothing I can do." Frustration surged within me, but I forced a smile. "Please, is there anything you can offer?" She shook her head, visibly tired. "You can try another hotel in the area, but everything's booked because of the winter festival. Sorry." "Great," I muttered under my breath. But then, as I turned to leave, I heard a familiar voice. "Everything okay, Ethan?" I froze. It was Luca. He was standing there looking even more stunning than I remembered, dressed in a crisp button-down shirt and slacks. His eyes lit up when he saw me. "Looks like we have the same problem," he said with a smile, walking over to me. "Need a place to stay?" I blinked, not sure if I was imagining things. Was this really happening? Luca's smile was warm, almost like an answer to the chaos swirling in my mind. I hadn't expected to run into him again, certainly not here, of all places. My heart skipped a beat as I tried to process the coincidence. But there was something about him, something magnetic, that made me feel like this moment wasn't as random as it seemed. "You're here?" I asked, still half in disbelief. Luca raised an eyebrow, clearly amused by my reaction. "You're not the only one who's had their plans derailed, Ethan. It seems fate is giving us a second chance to meet." I shook my head, a mix of skepticism and curiosity bubbling up inside me. "You really think that's what it is?" "Why not?" He shrugged, his confidence unwavering. "If I'm stuck in this city with no place to stay and you are too, why not make the best of it?" I hesitated, unsure if I should be wary or just go with it. Something about Luca felt genuine, even though we barely knew each other. Maybe it was the fact that he didn't seem like the kind of guy who'd take advantage of someone like me. His earlier kindness and calm demeanor hadn't been a fluke. "I don't know," I started, trying to weigh my options. I mean, I don't even know what to do next. Everything's so chaotic, and now I'm stuck here." Luca's gaze softened, and he placed a hand on my shoulder. "Hey, it's okay. We can figure it out together. If you don't mind, I actually have a place nearby. It's not much, but it's better than wandering the streets all night. You can crash there, and we'll figure out what to do tomorrow." I blinked, stunned by his offer. Part of me wanted to turn him down. This was all so sudden, so out of my comfort zone, but another part of me, the part that was tired of fighting the unexpected, just wanted to say yes. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I mean, I don't want to impose." Luca smiled again, that same charming, effortless grin that seemed to put me at ease. "You wouldn't be imposing, I promise. Besides, I can't just let you wander around. It's too late for that. Just think of it as an adventure." Adventure. The word hung in the air, and something inside me couldn't resist the allure of it. Maybe this was the kind of change I needed. Maybe I was meant to be here in Rome, with no plans, no destination, just a strange twist of fate guiding me forward. All right, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Let's do it. Luca's eyes lit up with something I couldn't quite place. Great. Follow me. He turned and walked out of the hotel, and I hurried to catch up, my thoughts still a whirlwind. As we made our way through the streets of Rome, the night air felt colder than I expected, but Luca's presence next to me kept the chill at bay. The city around us was alive, illuminated by the soft glow of streetlights and the laughter of people gathering at cafes. Despite everything that had gone wrong today, the city felt alive with possibility. Luca didn't speak much during the walk, but every now and then I caught a glimpse of his smile. It was like he knew something I didn't, something that made him so much more confident than I felt. When we arrived at the building where Luca lived, I was surprised at how understated it was. The outside was quaint, tucked away from the bustling main streets, but the moment Luca led me inside, I could see that the space was anything but ordinary. His apartment was spacious, with high ceilings and large windows that opened up to a view of the city skyline. It had an eclectic feel, with modern furniture mixed with vintage pieces that somehow worked together seamlessly. This is incredible, I said, glancing around in awe. I didn't expect this. Luca chuckled, his eyes twinkling. I guess it's a little nicer than most places in the area, but it's nothing too fancy. Make yourself at home. He gestured for me to sit on the couch, and I did, feeling a little out of place in such a polished setting. Luca disappeared into another room and returned with 2 glasses of wine. I know it's a strange situation, he said as he handed me a glass, but I thought we could at least enjoy the evening. I took the glass, the smooth red liquid, reflecting the soft glow of the lights around us. Thanks, I said, smiling hesitantly. We sat there for a while, sipping our wine and talking about nothing in particular. It was a strange feeling, this easy camaraderie between us. We were strangers, really, but it felt like we'd known each other for far longer. Luca had a way of making everything feel effortless. The conversation flowed naturally, and I found myself laughing, even though the day had started off so terribly. After a while, Luca set his glass down and turned to me, his expression more serious now. So, he began, how did you end up in this mess? You said your ticket got mixed up. I'm guessing this wasn't how you planned to spend Christmas? I sighed, feeling the weight of the day's events settle in again. Yeah, it wasn't. I was supposed to spend it with my family, you know? Christmas at home. But this whole thing just spiraled. I've never been this far from home, and now I'm stuck here not knowing what comes next. Luca nodded, his gaze thoughtful. I can understand that. It's not easy when things don't go the way you expect. But sometimes the best things happen when we stop trying to control everything. I gave him a look, not sure what he meant. You think so? He smiled, that same easygoing grin. I do. I mean, look at us. We were both thrown into this crazy situation, and now we're sitting here in Rome getting to know each other. That sounds like something worth celebrating, even if it's not what we planned. I considered his words for a moment. It was true. As much as I wanted to be angry or frustrated, there was a part of me that felt relieved. Relieved that I wasn't alone in this mess, that I had someone like Luca to share the experience with. Maybe this was just a detour, a moment that would lead to something else. Maybe it wasn't such a bad thing after all. You're right, I said softly, lifting my glass. Here's to unexpected adventures. Luca raised his glass to mine, his smile warm and sincere. To adventures and to whatever comes next. We clinked our glasses together, and for the first time that day, I felt a sense of peace. Whatever had brought me here, to this moment with Luca in this foreign city, I couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't a mistake. It was just the beginning of something unexpected.